Starting year 10, and Gordon's counting me down, and I'm looking at my computer. You've got Golden Black Live. It's a destination on a Tuesday afternoon. Tom Dienhart joins me, and we are glad to be starting year number 10. I was just looking at the questions on our website and our premium message boards. A lot of good questions. We asked for some earlier today. You can also chat them to us. Gordon will take them from WLFI. We'll take those questions and give this to us. Our special guest is Mike Babinski, and he will be joining us at about 20 after the hour or so. And Tom Dienhart, we're going to grill him. As if he hasn't talked at all about this game yet. You're getting tired of it. But I want to thank our sponsors. You shouldn't point on TV about point anyway. Basham Reynolds, John Basham, been a good friend of the show for almost all of our 10 years. Has been great. Triple X on the hill, but on the level of Purdue tradition since 1929. Kerry and Greg Ayresman also been sponsors for 10 years, as has Hilton Garden Inn and State Farm agent Trent Johnson. We appreciate all their support. Trent, one of the best friends of football you're going to find, a referee, obviously, in high school football, big supporter of Purdue sports, and never short on a good analysis of what you're going to see in the world of football. We always need to get him back on to actually talk about rule changes because he's good with that as well. All right, Tom, you are going to be on the driving up, not tomorrow, but Thursday. You don't get to go 2 days early to acclimate. You're going to have to tough it out and get used to that thin air in Reno. But leaving obviously for the Purdue game, we're finally here. What are we going to see?
Yeah, the analysis, all the conjecture, all the speculation, it's finally coming to an end. We got actual football, as Alan said, Friday night, 9:30 Eastern time kickoff here locally in Tippecanoe County. And, you know, it's an intriguing year, Alan. There's a lot of things to like about Purdue. Of course, there's worries as well. You know, offensively, I guess I'm most intrigued. Jeff Brom says they really haven't clicked that well on offense in camp.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, the skill talent on offense, the veteran quarterback, boy, there's a lot of potential. If that line comes together, that's the key on offense, I think. And then defensively, you know, Jeff Brom said that unit's been ahead of the offense throughout training camp and preseason practice. Better depth, more talent than last year's unit, and I think it has a chance to be pretty salty.
Yeah, and salty is that shirt that Tom wrote about and has been kind of a saying around the Purdue football program. This is I think is looking at it, and I don't look at it as closely as you do, not even near as close, but the whole notion of being ready for game one, I have concerns, and maybe not fair, but I don't have concerns about how good George Karlaftis can be. I don't know how good, none of us know how good George Karlaftis will be in year one. And I think some things fundamentally have to change on that defense, which we're taking the coaches at their word, and we haven't seen scrimmages either, but some things have changed, it appears, with that unit.
Yeah, Brom and Nick Holt, the defensive coordinator, said even way back in spring football, they had to get a better pass rush from the line. They can't rely on blitzes to try to pressure quarterbacks, and so far so good. Like you said, Alan, we haven't seen the scrimmages. We saw some practices early. Very limited exposure for us, but according to what the personnel and the coaches tell us, the pass rush has improved. Again, there's a lot to like on that defensive line, Alan. The big key, of course, Lorenzo Neal, the big senior tackle.
Yeah.
He's out. Jeff Brom said a few weeks ago that the earliest Neal will be back is for Game 2 against Vanderbilt, the home opener on September 7th. So he's a big loss in the middle of that defense. But even without Neal, they have good depth, and they think they can get a pretty good push up front.
And I haven't spent much time in elevation for a long period of time. We've had guys on the site analyzing the oxygen saturation points. I should have remembered that stuff in college, but I forgot it, I think, maybe a week after. But it's still an interesting deal. I mean, having to go out and get acclimated. But I think it maybe is deeper than that, too. It's just this is a new season. Every year, you look at every team and how they play. Outside of West Side and Jeff last week, who were throwing the ball around and catching it everywhere, it takes time to get developed, whether you're playing in 4,500 feet of elevation and temperatures. It's still game one.
Yeah, you know, Jeff said that there's a lot of those same things. There's a lot for this team to prove. You never know what's going to happen in game one. Obviously, they've had 2 scrimmages. It's obviously not a game. You never know what's going to happen when they flip the lights on. You're playing game one, live action. If you looked at Purdue's depth chart that got released on Monday, it's really dotted by a lot of freshmen, redshirt and true freshmen both. You talked about Karlaftis. Jalen Graham's a projected starter at strong safety on that defense as well. Again, several redshirt freshmen are projected to be starters. Lawrence Johnson at defensive tackle was a bit of an eyebrow raiser, at least for me. Offensively, Ahmad Anderson is a redshirt freshman projected to start on that side of the ball. So again, Alan, there's a lot to be excited about with this young talent, but you never know how young talent's going to respond coming right out of the gate.
Yeah, how much do you think with Jeff Brom in terms of that notion of, I sense with knowing him over the last couple of years, he's a guy that's he's always puts the best guys in the field, not all that concerned, like the fact that Anderson is starting over Milton Wright, matter of semantics as much as anything else. I mean, if that's the correct term.
Yeah, I mean, we talked to Jamarcus Shepard after practice on Monday. Of course, the co-offensive coordinator, wide receivers coach, he made no bones about it, Alan. The freshman wide receivers are going to play, in particular, David Bell and Milton Wright from Louisville. Each are listed number 2 on the depth chart right now at a wide receiver spot. But again, he said they're going to get in the game early, and they're going to get in the game often. So again, a lot of playmakers, and Shepard wants to get those guys acclimated quickly. He thought they'd play upwards of 6 to 7 wide receivers that he feels comfortable with. So again, like I said from the top, there's a lot of skill position talent to be excited about. And Alan, we're 8 minutes into the show, and I haven't even mentioned Rondale Moore's name.
Yeah. It's funny. He's almost an afterthought on this, and I think he will not be an afterthought once that game starts. That's what's going to be interesting. I think in all my years, and you've been watching Purdue football, the only reason why I've been watching Purdue football longer is because I'm 5 years older than Tom. But this is I don't know that I've had many years where you just, and maybe it's a function too of the way practices. You're not in every practice. There's a little bit like open up a present here at the end. You're not exactly sure, or it's that mystery gift. You're not exactly sure. Well, David Bell's going to do this. Milton Wright's going to do this. It's going to be fun to watch it. We didn't know for sure on Rondale Moore last year till about 10 minutes into that game.
What a
knew.
Yeah, what a debut, right? Nobody will forget. 313 total yards, I think it was.
Set the record, right?
Set the record. Broke Otis Armstrong's record.
Yeah.
I think, Alan, you always want to respect your opponent. And I know Purdue's doing that with Nevada. But I will say this, I think Nevada's a good matchup for Purdue.
And why? And what?
On both sides of the ball. No, first offensively, Nevada's going to start a redshirt freshman quarterback, Carson Strong.
Yeah.
6'4", 220-pound kid. Looks good walking through the door. But he hasn't played a lot of football since his junior year in high school. He missed his senior year with injury. He redshirted last year, got into one game. So he really hasn't seen, I guess, live bullets, so to speak, for a long time. So you got to think Purdue's going to try to slow down and contain the Nevada run and then pressure this young quarterback. Hopefully they can cause some mistakes and get some turnovers as well. And then defensively, Nevada runs sort of an unconventional 3-3-5, a defensive scheme, built more on speed than size. Purdue's going to have a very big size advantage up front. I know the Purdue offensive line has issues, but I do think they can push these guys around, get the ground game established, and then that, of course, would set up Sinlar to throw that ball downfield. Yeah.
It's interesting, too, in the offensive lines, the psyche of what we're seeing, and you've been around and talked with Grant Hermans, you talked to yesterday, I think, but the whole notion that, you hear that a lot. Everybody says that's the biggest question mark on the team, and I suppose that's reality, outside of maybe punting, too, but these guys might get tired of hearing that stuff, too. I mean, sometimes it has a way of galvanizing guys, and that's what's going to be an interesting storyline to watch.
Yeah, the old chip on the shoulder. I'm going to show them. They get tired of probably hearing about it, reading about it, and all the conjecture and all the questions about the offensive line. Like you said, I'm sure, Grant Hermans, Matt McCann, and that whole crew wants to show that, hey, we are a representative unit, and we can do a good job. So, again, they know the challenge, and like I said, if you believe what Jeff Brom says, he seems pretty comfortable with his first 5 guys, and I think they could play upwards of 7 to 8 guys if they really had to.
And I think you'll see as many guys as he can get in there on the 2 deeps. It'll be interesting to see at the end of the 44 or approximately 44 that are on the 2 deeps, how many actually will get in the game, and it will be a large number. And that ties also into the conditioning, which I think Purdue's obviously Justin Lovett and company should feel like they're in good shape, but you just don't know how you're going to react to that first game and the altitude. We did a lot of fun research this week. It is what did we say? It is the highest altitude Purdue's ever played in, ever, we think, until somebody points us differently. And I didn't know that it's, 4,500 feet. The Sun Bowl in El Paso at 3,700 feet is the second most. But and then somebody brought it in last day on the message board about Pitt. I'd forgotten about Pitt, but Pitt is only, the old Pitt Stadium's only at 1,400 feet. I've been there, and I don't think I was breathing too hard at that one back in the days of Jim Everett and Jack Beery. So that's going to be an interesting storyline as well. Taking an overview of this season, and we can probably the best thing that Jeff Brom always talks about that they do is they make it the one-game season. I think his players, his kids have bought into that notion. We look over we can sit there back and twiddle our thumbs and look at the 12-game season, but you don't want to lose game one because this is a funny schedule in terms of a challenging schedule. And the game that everybody says, is a layup is the one that can make you nervous too in Illinois. You got a really interesting schedule where I think all games, with maybe the exception of the Illinois game, will be in that point spread of 10 points or less. I mean, it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, you never want to say the first game of the year is a must-win game. But, if you're Purdue, you want to avoid that 0-3 start that they had the last year's season. You really had to dig out of that hole. Did a great job coming out of that hole as well. To rally to 6-6 to get to a bowl game was impressive. But again, if you're Purdue, you'd like to think you can go on the road and beat this Mountain West team that's starting a redshirt freshman quarterback. But again, you never want to take anything for granted. Because after that, Alan, you come home and you got a couple Power 5 opponents in Vanderbilt and Texas Christian. They may not have the name brand appeal of Oklahoma and Texas, but Vanderbilt is a pretty salty program. I'm going to use that word again. Of course, Gary Patterson down in Fort Worth has done a great job building that Horned Frog program up over the years. One of the better coaches in America. Always plays great defense. So, boy, if you're Purdue, you'd like to come back, after that game Friday night with 1 W, knowing that, hey, we got one in the bag, we're back on our home turf, and we got Vandy up next, an SEC opponent. And again, maybe that gives the program some momentum, then get off to maybe a 3-0 start.
Well, and it's interesting because I like the way that with the double bye week, because of where Labor Day is so early this year that you end up having 2 byes. I like the way the schedule does set up for Purdue because you can reset after the first 3 games. You hope you have positive reinforcement that you get 2 or 3 of those games as wins, but it's good because then you get in the Big Ten, and that Minnesota game after what happened last year in Minneapolis is a huge game. It's also a chippy game when you have P.J. Fleck. I know P.J. Fleck and Jeff Brom respect one another. I'm sure that's the case, but they're also in that 3rd year, and everybody's talking about both programs as upstart programs. So that's going to be a great game. Then you go to Happy Valley. So again, we can look at it. If you look at it week after week after week, it becomes daunting. If you take a small bite of the apple, which they sound like they've done. Jeff Brown historically has done a pretty good job of keeping his guys focused.
Yeah, they got a chance. The Big Ten West, I think, is still pretty wide open. You talk to most pundits, they obviously will agree. Nebraska's been a darling pick by a lot of people to win the Big Ten West. I think maybe the bandwagon's gotten a little carried away with the Cornhuskers and the Scott Frost hype, but they will be good. Iowa's the team I like a lot with Nate Stanley. You always trust in Kirk Ferentz, Alan. 21st year in Iowa City. And then you talked about P.J. Fleck, and again, Paul Christ, Wisconsin's really been the bellwether of the division for a number of years. So there's a lot of good programs, and you could probably make a case for upwards of 4, 5, or even 6 teams winning that division this year.
I think that's true, and I would start with Wisconsin as the team. Jonathan Taylor, I know they've got to fix their quarterback situation, and they did not have as good a year defensively as they've had. That will be an interesting thing. Iowa, those are the 2 teams. Northwestern still, I know they've got a good, or certainly a well-respected incoming quarterback, certainly from in Hunter Johnson. But this is a team also that he's done a terrific job in building a very, very solid program. So yeah, I know the West gets maligned. I get that. It's a great place for Purdue to be where the Boilermakers are right now, because you can put yourself in a position to be very, very competitive, and one would expect that right away.
Exactly right. It's going to be fun. Year 3 for Jeff Brom. I always say he's going to be measured against P.J. Fleck and Scott Frost. They all kind of came in the league about the same time. And it's going to be neat to see which one of these 3 guys can maybe get their team to the summit of the Big Ten West first. You talked about P.J. Fleck coming here. Back in 2017, Purdue got out of here by the skin of its teeth, a very close fun game. If you remember, Alan, there was a weather delay in that game.
Right.
And the teams had to leave the field for maybe upwards of an hour or so.
Purdue kicked the field goal right before the rain started, and then who was it? Jawan Bentley had to pick six at the end and made that point spread look a little bit more than it really was. Huge win.
I mean, speaking of point spreads, Alan and I talked earlier this week about Purdue being a double-digit favorite on the road in a non-conference game. And when was the last time Purdue was favored by double digits on the road in a non-conference game? Got to go back to 1999 when Purdue was favored by 16 points when they went to Orlando, Florida to play the Central Florida Knights. And of course, Alan, Purdue won that game.
Yeah, won by 34, and Travis Dortch, I think, had a touchdown pass, and if you can believe it, Purdue's kicker/punter at the time. But they also had a quarterback, that guy number 15, that Drew Brees guy. But that was a good win back then, and amazing in 20 years where Central Florida's program has gone. No, they weren't terrible at that time. That was a year after Dante Culpepper had played. With the Knights as well. Okay, we're going to take a 2-minute break and bring in our special guest today, Mike Babinski, Purdue's third-year athletic director, and we'll look forward to talking to Mike. Actually, his fourth. He's correcting us because you started in 16, so you're starting your fourth year. That's right. So and that's totally fair. But he is always a favorite on the show, and when a guy knows how long he's been there, he knows he's been working it for that period of time, and he certainly has. So we'll look forward to having Mike join us. We'll take a 2-minute break and see you on Gold and Black Live.